All right, I know you've been struggling to write successful copy recently. So I want you to know I'm here to coach you and to advise you so that you can finally put something out that is of publishable quality.
Awesome.
Okay, after the intro, the first section is write for your audience. All right, this is not going to work.
But every copywriter talks about that. Just look at the rest of it. It's all really good advice.
I am looking at the rest of it, and it's all the same stuff everybody talks about all the time. Honestly, it seems like something AI would come up with. This is a real business. If we can't make our products and ideas stand out and feel unique, then there is no reason for a prospect to pay attention to us instead of somebody else.
Okay, so what should I do? It's not like this is some amazing new topic. We're talking about editing and revising. Like, how do we make this feel new?
Watch and learn, Buckaroo. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into a piece of copy only to have it come out looking like this? Just a malformed, uninteresting rock. Can I throw it?
Yeah.
But then you look at copy out there in the world and it looks more like this. Captivating, beautiful, polished. In fact, you've probably had the experience where you write something and it looks like this dumb rock. And then you try to fix it and it's still just as bad. Trust me, we've all been there. So we've got to ask ourselves, how do you go from writing the equivalent of a lame, boring, dumb, stupid rock to a beautiful piece of jewelry? Or, something worth reading? Well, it all starts with overcoming one of the biggest misconceptions among new copywriters. See, when you're writing, you're going down into the mine and you're digging up rocks. But to refine and mold and polish what you dug up into something beautiful, even the best miner in the planet is going to have trouble with that. It requires a different set of skills. And that's the heart of the problem. You have to realize that writing and editing are not the same skill. No amount of writing copy is going to make you good at revising your copy. They are as different as mining and making jewelry. So in this video, we're going to introduce you to the 3 levels of editing that will turn your copy from this into this.
Now, there are 3 types of edits you need to know about if you're going to do this well. And the last one is probably the most important, so you're going to want to stick around for that. The first kind of edits are probably the ones you're most familiar with, because if you're a beginner, you're probably doing this already, and it might be what you think editing is. They are called line edits.
So doing line editing is also often called punching up copy. You'll often hear these phrases used interchangeably. It really just means looking at your copy sentence by sentence, word by word, and seeing how you can write the copy better. It's like one step cerebrally above proofreading, like making sure the grammar is correct. You want to make sure instead, when you're doing line edits, that what you're doing is making sure each sentence not only adheres to the whole idea of what you're trying to say, but also communicates effectively what you're trying to say, and also does so in a way that is befitting of the copy that you're writing. So for example, if you're writing sales copy, you want to make sure that every single line of your copy does the job of selling well.
And without line edits, copy can be really hard to read, and what is copy if not something to be read? Have you ever been on a page or even reading a book where you just can't get across a sentence because it doesn't make sense? There's too many connectives, it goes on forever. Well, that's the kind of thing that line edits can cure. So in the last stages of writing copy, they are so important to get right.
This is your opportunity to make sure that the lines of copy that you write are clear and fully communicate what you're trying to communicate, because as we all know, a confused mind does not buy. If we aren't paying attention to what could be confusing to the reader and seeking to improve that copy so that it's better, well, we're failing.
My favorite tip for doing line edits well is reading your copy out loud. My goodness, does it bring up some bad examples of how to write. Just sit there and read as a normal person would what you have written. Read it out loud because your brain treats it in a different way to when you're used to reading it on the page. It will help you pick up on bits that don't quite roll off the tongue.
Another tip is to remove weak verbs. This is actually advice that you'll hear not so much from a lot of copy gurus, but if you go into spaces where there are a lot of like really high paid professional copywriters, they talk about this a lot. because your verbs are the things that really do dictate and control the power of your sentences. So instead of writing something like, this helps the symptoms of butt pimples, you can do something a little bit better, like this eliminates butt pimples, or this annihilates butt pimples, this destroys, eradicates, completely obviates, ameliorates butt pimples. These things get a little crazy, but you see what I'm saying, that all these verbs are a little bit more powerful than like helps. Another example is how the verb discover is a little bit better than the verb to learn. Another example is how pretty much any verb is better than the verb to be. That is, are, was, etc.
And another thing, have you ever heard the objection that copy sounds too salesy? Maybe you have said it yourself. Well, that's not entirely wrong. Sometimes copywriting can come across a little bit slimy. And guess what? Line edits are the way to improve that. In fact, I recorded a video on exactly how you can use line edits to get rid of the salesy elements of copy, so you can remove all the slime and make yourself sound trustworthy.
Another really important thing to pay attention to is the flow of your copy. For example, if you have lots of really, really long run-on sentences with tons of clauses that are traveling through 30 million different ideas, it's going to be really hard for your readers to follow along. On the other hand, if you have very, very short sentences that don't say much, your readers are going to have a hard time understanding why it is you're even speaking in the first place. Making sure that the flow of your copy is consistent and makes for a great reading experience is going to amplify the ability of your copy to convert. One super simple way to improve the flow of your copy is to go back through after you finish writing and make sure that you're varying the length of your sentences. If you see that you have all really, really long sentences, break some of them down so they're shorter. On the other hand, if you have tons of short sentences, try combining them to break up that monotony.
But the thing about line edits is they're probably the least important type of edit that you can do, and that's why you should do them last. We still have two more to talk about that are way more important. And if we're being realistic, by the time you're making enough money, line edits are the kind of thing you should probably outsource anyway. So if you really want to know how to be a great copywriter right now, keep watching for the next two tips.
So the next level of editing that you should probably keep in mind are called functional edits. And they are exactly what they sound like. You are looking section by section, paragraph by paragraph of your copy and making sure that everything coheres, that you're making a salient argument, that ultimately what you're doing in the copy that you're writing is functioning well. A lot of what you do when it comes to functional edits is actually going through and moving sections and paragraphs around to have the effect that you desire your copy to have. It's really just looking at the structure, looking at the order in which you deploy things, and determining what should come first, what should come in the middle, and what should come last, and ultimately making sure that everything is functioning correctly to convey the idea, convey the argument, or to convey the value that you are trying to communicate.
Now, as you might have guessed, function edits are crucial to keeping the attention of the reader instead of making them wait to get to the real meat of what you're trying to say. It's pretty obvious that if you move a section, that could fundamentally change what someone is looking for when they're reading the rest of your copy. And at the end of the day, if the function edits are off, then you're not going to make as much money. You can have all the ingredients you need for a recipe, but if you put them in the bowl in the wrong order or bake it at the wrong temperature, it's not going to come out well. You need to make sure things are structured in the right way, and that's why function edits are so important.
A really simple tip for doing function edits well is to obey a concept called the golden thread. Basically, the golden thread is the idea that you are trying to weave throughout a single piece of copy. What you want to do in your copy when you reread what you've written is make sure that everything is being tied back to the main idea that you're trying to communicate. Here's a simple example. If you are trying to sell somebody a face cream and one of the main ingredients of that particular face cream is elephant tears, you don't want to be spending an entire section of copy talking about the harvesting of elephant tears. That would be a distraction from what you are trying to do. No, you want to go back and you want to remove the pieces of copy that you've written so that everything is moving and flowing correctly, and it's structured in a way that makes the sale and makes a good argument for why somebody should buy what you were trying to sell.
How do we know how to structure our copy if we've never written good copy before? That's a fantastic question. The way you learn how to structure your copy is the way you learn everything else about copy, by studying. The best way to study the structure of copy is using a technique called reverse outlining. Reverse outlining is actually quite simple. When you're reading a piece of copy, Simply write down what you think each section of that copy is doing so that you're essentially forming an outline of that copy. So for example, when you're studying copy and you notice that, hey, the credibility section always seems to be coming before they introduce the mechanism in the copy, that's actually telling you something really important about the way that that copy is being structured. Mark that down, and then the next time you go to write copy, try using that same technique. Over time, you'll develop a series of outlines like this that you can apply to different forms of copy to suit the different situations that you're writing for.
Now, if you've seen my 5-hour video where I talk about how to write copy from scratch, you may remember a part of the video where I talk about spit drafting. Spit drafting is one of my favorite ways to write any kind of copy, and here's how it works. Instead of just writing the copy, you first plot out what you are going to say. Now, I don't mean the words that you're going to write, I just mean describing what you're going to talk about. For example, if you know that after you've made a claim, you're going to need some proof to back that up, you can just write claim, proof. Now, you can be a bit more detailed than that if you know what kind of proof you need or what kind of claim you want to make, but the point is you don't have to worry about exactly how it's going to be written yet. This is going to help you get through your copy and plan it out in a fully functional way before you commit to any specific words. This makes the process so much easier and gives you a clearer path to follow when you come to write. And just like Rod was talking about, when you've templatized other people's copy, you can then break down what it was that they were doing and see if you can replicate that in your own spit drafts. So if you're going back to try and edit your copy using function edits, this is the technique I recommend you use to help keep your writing on track.
So this final kind of editing is called value edits, and it is by far the most important type of editing you can do, and it is also the first type of editing that you should do. Now, before I describe what value edits are, I'm simply going to say that value edits can be the thing that separates copy that sells thousands from copy that sells millions of dollars of a product. And that is because ultimately we are writing to people who have seen other stuff, people who feel feelings and have like squishy bits. We are ultimately writing to people that have desires, notions, and identifications. And if we are not keeping that in mind and we're not presenting them with something that they find interesting, compelling, enticing, they're not going to pay attention to our copy, no matter how good the lines are or no matter how well structured it is. Value edits are where you go into a piece of copy and you simply ask, is the idea good enough? Is the argument good enough? Is the lead good enough? Is the middle bit compelling, interesting, different, unique, etc.? And ultimately, that word unique is the thing that you want to be keeping in mind here, because people really do tie up the value of something with how different it is. And let me tell you, as somebody who has many, many years of experience with this, the moment your reader says, "Oh, I've seen this before," "Oh, I've heard this before," you've lost them. You're never going to sell as much as something that you can frame as valuable, different, or unique. And oftentimes, if you're critiquing your own copy or critiquing somebody else's copy, this is the point where you want to stop reading if you don't answer this question effectively. One of the best pieces of advice that I give to people, especially who are starting to mentor copywriters, is if this particular piece of copy does not pass the value editing test, that is, if it doesn't feel unique, if it doesn't feel valuable, don't do any line edits. Don't do any function edits, because it's never going to be good enough. And as I often say on this channel, a polished turd is still a turd. And you don't want to be revising or editing something that is, at its core, a piece of shit.
A great and actually relatively simple way to start to add some of that value back into your copy is to take a look at what you've written and see if you can frame it as something that's new. A really common way you see this technique used is to take the experience of yourself or the guru or whoever it is you're writing for and frame the product or service that they're selling as something that has come directly from their experience. We've all heard the story of the guy who starts off really high in life and takes this disastrous fall and comes back to present us with this thing that saved him from his terrible situation. And only after having gone through that, he can show us this product. By framing the product as something that has just come from this person's experience, what they're saying implicitly is that before that, the product couldn't have existed. And so what they're delivering is something brand new to the world. That's just inherently interesting. And so your readers are going to be way more captivated by a story like that than simply presenting the product as is.
Which sounds more exciting? You can lose weight by cutting food and exercising, or You can shed buckets of fat with my unique shinbone method in less than 44 days. Of course, the latter sounds far more interesting, and there's a reason for that. If you tell people what they already know, as we've discussed, they're not going to be interested in it. But if you can package it into a system, into something that seems planned and proven, not only does it seem more exciting, but also it seems like it's more reliable. If there's a system that's been built around it, then surely it must work. And that's why systematizing copy is such a common thing when we look at value editors. Changing a basic promise or a basic claim into a system that has a story built around it. It becomes so much more alive, and you can do so much more of it with the rest of your copy. It's not just info products and classic direct response niches that can benefit from systematizing though. Huggies diapers are a perfect example. They don't just say, hey, we've added a flap to the back that's going to help keep the poo in. Instead, they call it the triple knock anti-tsunami system. And all of a sudden, it feels like a lot more effort and thought has gone into the creation and production of it, therefore it must be worth more than you think. Or if you've ever bought something as simple as sticky hooks to put posters on the wall, they don't just talk about, hey, put it on and rip it off. Instead, they talk about how it's an airlock system, so your posters are guaranteed to never fall down. By taking regular claims and regular benefits and changing them into these systems at any level, it becomes so much more exciting and so much more believable for the reader.
What do you guys think?
That works for me.
I love it.
I guess the close would be like all of us on screen, and then us being like, and also we have a multi-hour masterclass about value editing and function editing that we posted to patreon.com/thecopythatshow.
In the can. Done.
Sean, do you want to take that since it's your masterclass and we say, hey, if you want to see me and Lindsey?
You just did.
I'm up for that.
Lindsey and I did a long editing masterclass on value edits and function edits. Line edits coming soon on patreon.com/thecopythatshow. It's really good, and we put a lot of effort into it. But the effort doesn't make it good. We did some value edits on the thing
Nice.
to make it good.
It was good. I liked it.
It's only good because of the value edits, is what I'm trying to say.
And the function edits.
And I think, here's the thing. I think this video had better function edits than the actual masterclass, simply because we structured this particular video in reverse order to actually have a build-up effect, so that like the most important thing was last, to help with YouTube retention, so that we make more money, and I get more Lamborghini butlers to wash the Lamborghinis of my other butlers.
I think the retention's going down now.
Did you say butlers?